Hello everybody, welcome from sunny Delft. We were again very happy to see your work from week 4. We have seen some very interesting and inspiring proposals which we will discuss in this video.
We want to start this week's feedback with this nice example from Maurice. He lives in Dublin. And it's interesting because he compares the city with the human body. And when we're talking about metabolism, this is a really nice comparison because we can see several flows that take place in the city can be compared to the flows that take place in our body. And also it shows that all these flows and all these parts are connected. And if one of them fails working, then it also influences the other flows in a negative way. We can really clearly see this human body comparison concept in this example from Janet from Bulgaria. And she shows here the city of Jambal. And actually, she explains that the water system in the current situation is working quite well. But there are some factors that are failing. And if one of the water system things fails, it has an influence on all the others. And this is comparable with, for example, your kidneys. If they fail to clean the water in your body, then it has a negative effect on a lot of other organs. And here she explains that by adding wastewater treatment plants, we can reduce this problem. And I really like about her proposal that she really shows graphically how the problem in Jambal can be solved.
Here we see an example of air pollution as a flow of urban metabolism. This is a proposal from Andy Roa. He lives in Mexico City. We can see that there is a lot of traffic on the road and a lot of factories which both produce air pollution. In his maybe extreme solution for this, he designed a superway above the city. This will reduce the traffic jam and therefore also the traffic congestions. With the space that is now used as the road, he proposes to make it a green area of the city, which will also make the air cleaner. Here we see the city of Manchester in UK. Andrea says that in her city there is a lot of infrastructure because it is a dense city. In her proposal, she wants to have more bicycle paths. She wants to connect the train station better, and she wants to stimulate people to use public transport, and therefore wants to have people use our parking spots around the city. What we like about this proposal is that she makes use of the existing infrastructure, and therefore it's an idea that is easy to implement.
A real different approach we can see at this one. It's from Lazaro Martinez, and he lives in Guatemala City. He explains with this schematic drawing that in Guatemala City, the center actually is used for working. It's really a working area or business district. And this resulted in dormitory cities around it where the people sleep and live. And then they go to Guatemala City to work there. In between those cities and the big city, Guatemala City, we have rangerlands and agricultural lands. And there actually there's a need for transportation of, for example, food for the rangerlands that in the current situation need to cross these cities. And the proposal from Lazaro is this interesting drawing, which reminds us a lot of the work of Ebenezer Howard in the Garden City movement. It's interesting to look up a picture of him and his ideas, because we can see here a central working city with clear directions to the dormitory cities, and around it the productive lands are situated, so they don't have to cross anymore through the city. In this way, all the flows are not blocking each other, but are actually going around each other, which will hopefully result in less congestion in the big city.
Here we see a proposal from Xenia. She lives in Antwerp. Antwerp has one of the biggest ports in Europe. This port uses positive flows from the city, like the river and the infrastructure, but give negative flows in return, like air pollution and traffic congestion. But also other problems like noise and spatial issues. She states in her proposal that houses in Antwerp use different kind of heating systems like gas and electricity, while the harbor produces a lot of heat that just go up in the air. That's why she suggests a central heating system for the city. In this way, the harbor can give a positive flow back to the city.
In this example of Jordan, we can clearly see the discussion actually between globalization versus localization. He explains that in the current situation, there are a lot of farms in the area he lives in Canada, in Richmond. But a lot of this food is exported, and also a lot of foods are imported because there's not a lot of variety in the crops that are produced here. So actually, Richmond is also importing a lot of food from, for example, the USA, Mexico, and even Asia. And he explains that if we try to have a bigger variance of crops grown here, that Richmond is more localized and actually less dependent on other regions. And this explains the situation of localization and globalization, because in the current globalization trend, we tend to be more depending on other regions and other countries in our own supplies. Sanya lives in the city of Moscow, and every day she experiences the crowd because there's so many people that need to go in the city. And she says, in the current situation, we have over 12 million people that live inside the city and another 7 million that live in the suburbs. And there are even more people that are registered, and they all have to go every day in the city, and then in the evening they go out again. So you can imagine that there's a lot of pressure on the current public transport, but also car system. And she has a quite interesting solution, because she says we can actually duplicate Moscow. So we'll have Moscow 1 and Moscow 2. And then we split up also the fields or domains that are taking place in these two cities. So, for example, Moscow 1 focuses on culture, education, and tourism. And in Moscow 2, there's politics, tough business, and services. In this way, we could split the people and their flows, and the amount of people that need to travel to one city get reduced. Actually, I'm very curious if she also has an idea how to do this, or maybe a timeline how we can get from the current situation to the other one. So, Sanya, if you could explain this in your comments, that would be very, very interesting.